Crikey.
Oh, it's broken. Oh, it's actually broken. Ah!
Can you get to it underneath here and unplug it, or you want to just cut those?
I think I'll just cut it and stick it in my bag, and I'll fix it later. Thank you, Ron, I never saw that. Okay. I'll just have to do left turns. Good morning, guys. Can you believe it was 10 months ago when this bracket broke? And here it is, still attached to the stem of the indicator, the turn signal. This nut is stuck on there. I think it's just a little rusty, but I can't use that bottom nut because it just unscrews. I also don't want to damage the chrome on the stem, so I'll need to try something else. I'm just going to remove the nut from the inside of the indicator housing so that I can put a lock nut on the end of it, and then that will allow me to hold the stem in place so that I can remove the main nut. So it wasn't that tight after all, but I just couldn't get a grip on it otherwise. Here I'm just cleaning up the rusty threads on the stem. This wire brush, it's not too aggressive, and so it shouldn't remove the chrome. I also use the wire wheel to clean the surface rust of this main nut. Here I'm just reassembling the turn signal again, and you'll see that I've got a new wire and a bulb holder. This came out of a spare aftermarket unit, and you'll notice that it's got one of the new bullets on the end of the wire. They don't fit very well in the original bullet connectors from Lucas. I actually snipped off that new bullet and I replaced it by soldering an original Lucas bullet on the end of it, and that will be much tighter in the bullet connector. And the secret here is not to over tighten these screws on the lenses, otherwise you can easily break them. Okay, it's time to remove the taillight bracket from the bike. Here's the broken bracket and the wire that I snipped when I was out on the ride to the club. Here I'm just going to remove the tail light fairing that hides the wires. Next I'm snipping the cable ties and disconnecting all the wires. I also made a note of all the wire connections just in case. You have to be just a little careful trying to remove some of these old bullet connectors because they can sometimes snap the wire if they're stuck in there. And this is the CNW, the Colorado Norton Works tail light conversion, and I'll show you how effective it is in a bit, but it's an excellent unit. I highly recommend it, and I'll put a link in the description of where you can find it. And then removing the pillar nuts that hold the LED board with the fairing together. Just removing these little reflector units to release the license plate. This is actually an original 1974 Oregon motorcycle license plate. It has what is called a special interest plate designation. It allows you to register the bike with an original plate. I think it looks really cool, and it works out a lot cheaper in the long run as you don't have to pay to renew the registration tags every couple of years. Just a little light fab work here to bang out some of the old bends. Here I'm removing some of the paint from the broken part of the bracket and the bracket itself to prepare it for welding. This little Dremel tool really helps prepare the surface and cut into the break point to allow for the weld to hold in between. My friend Jeff has kindly offered to weld the bracket together. Just watch your eyes. I'm just going to clean up the old weld spots on the bracket with the Dremel tool before repainting. I've degreased the plate and I'm going to paint it now with some Rust-Oleum gloss black paint. It was well over 90 degrees out there, so it baked for about 3 days in the backyard. I'm just fitting the stems back onto the bracket and then loosely fitting the bracket to the rear mudguard and then reconnecting all the wires. And hopefully reconnecting all the wires correctly. Yeah, this CNW rear light unit is fantastic. You can see how much brighter it is than the standard bulb. Ah! Got my wires crossed. I'm refitting the fairing now, and I gave everything a good clean and polish before I reassembled everything. Here I'm removing the old brake light switch. It's just held together by these 2 nuts and bolts and the 2 wires that you see here. I'm looking for broken wires here, but they seem to be fine, so it must be just the switch. Luckily, I've got a spare switch in my spares box, so it's a simple swap out. The secret here is that you have to fit the switch while the brake pedal is depressed. The switch is activated when you press on the brake pedal. It's constantly pushing up against the pedal until you press the pedal that activates the realign switch. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next week.